This is the Year 8 Ecosystems Reverse to Classroom. Large number of the facts that you're going to come exposed to during the unit itself. Right? What it'll do, it'll just help you understand exactly what's going on in the class before you're actually taught the unit. This is the kind of snaky diagram. So what it does, it goes through photosynthesis, respiration, chemosynthesis, food chains, food webs, ecosystems in general, and then at the end of it you'll then have assessments. Right, so what we've got here now is we've got the photosynthesis equation, which is what we're going to talk about. We've got carbon dioxide that a plant then takes in through its leaves. We've got water that a plant takes in through its roots. We've then got light energy that provides the energy for the process, and we make glucose and we make oxygen that then comes out. This process is done in the chlorophyll that actually sits inside the leaves. You might get asked for a balanced symbol equation, and what you've got here is you've got carbon dioxide, you've got water, that's glucose, and you've got oxygen. And to actually balance it, you put a 6 there, a 6 there, and a 6 there. That is then your balanced photosynthesis equation. Now this is then a leaf, right? What you've got to do is you've got to know the names and the jobs of each individual part. The waxy cuticle, what that does is keeps water in, right? Doesn't waterproof it, even though it does to a certain extent. The whole point in that is to keep water in. The upper epidermis is protection. We've then got the palisade mesophyll cells, right? What I should do is I should really colour that green because they are full of chloroplasts, right? That is then where the vast majority of the photosynthesis happens, and those leaves are then kind of rectangular so they can fit in better. We've then got spongy mesophyll, we've got stoma, and we've got guard cells, right? Now what guard cells do, guard cells open and close the stoma. It's like the hole at the bottom, and the stoma is the hole. Now what happens is carbon dioxide comes in through the leaf, and then it comes in through the spongy mesophyll, which has kind of like got gaps in it. Carbon dioxide diffuses through, and what it does, it then aims at getting to the chloroplasts. So the spongy mesophyll allows the carbon dioxide to work its way through. Once photosynthesis has happened, oxygen comes out of the chloroplasts and by diffusion comes back out of the stoma. Now, a starch test for a leaf. Right, so what we've got is we've got little processes here. We've got a leaf, you put it into boiling water. What that does, it kind of breaks down the cells. Then you put it into a boiling tube of ethanol, and that ethanol then goes into the boiling water, and because ethanol boils at 80 degrees C, what it does, it boils inside there, and then it's kind of boiling with the leaf itself. Take the leaf out, wash it. So what you've done is you've broken down the cells, you've taken out the chloroplasts and the chlorophyll, so it's kind of like a horrible mucky brown colour. Add iodine to it, and if it goes black, that means there's starch present. Now, it looks like we've already done this slide. How come I've put this one in again? All right, this one is aerobic respiration. Now, if you think about what I then talked about before with photosynthesis, aerobic respiration is exactly the other way around. Where this time we're taking in glucose, which is in your food, you're breathing in oxygen, because this is then what you're doing. Instead of taking in energy from the sun, you're releasing energy. You're breathing out carbon dioxide, and you're breathing out water to a certain extent. The balanced chemical equation, glucose plus 6O2 makes 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O. But the key thing is if you can remember photosynthesis, you can remember aerobic respiration. If you can remember aerobic respiration, you can remember photosynthesis. They're exactly back from each other, except for one takes in energy, which is photosynthesis, and one releases energy. Anaerobic. Anaerobic means not enough oxygen or no oxygen. And this is then the equation for anaerobic respiration in humans. Our glucose is turned into lactic acid and we give out a bit of energy. That's the formula for glucose, that's the formula for lactic acid, and that's then the formula for energy. Now what anaerobic respiration does, it gives out much less energy right, than aerobic respiration. It's nowhere near as efficient. And it also builds up something called an oxygen debt. So what you then have to do is you've then got to breathe extra heavy to get rid of this lactic acid that's built up in your body. Anaerobic respiration in yeast. Okay, so yeast, it kind of works exactly the same way. There's no oxygen again. And what we have here is we've got our glucose. The anaerobic respiration in yeast forms this product, which is alcohol, which is actually ethanol, and it gives off carbon dioxide. So if you're ever brewing anything, your mum or dad or whoever it is then brewing wine or beer, right, it's the yeast anaerobic respiration that produces the ethanol, and then it also bubbles, which is then the carbon dioxide. Chemosynthesis. Right, I'm literally just going to read this one out really. A process by which some organisms, like bacteria, use chemical energy to produce carbohydrates. So instead of using sunlight, what these bacteria can do is they can actually use chemical energy, which is like bonds in things, to produce carbohydrates. Food chains and food webs. So on this left hand side, what I've got is I've got loads of chains, food chains. So I'll start with the grass, I go to a shrew, and then the owl eats it. The arrow to me means eaten by. So grass is eaten by a shrew, which is then eaten by an owl. And there's another one here. Plant matter is eaten by a snail, eaten by a hedgehog, eaten by a fox. And what a food web is a combination of all those food chains together. So if I now look at, let's change the colour, what colour should we do? I'm going to do bright yellow. If I start with grass, grass is eaten by a rabbit, which is eaten by an owl. So grass is eaten by a rabbit. I haven't got it in there, right? I need another one in there that then says owl. Okay, so basically a food web is a combination of lots and lots and lots of food chains. Now each one of them has, it's like a trophic level. So if I start with an oak tree, it gets eaten by a bark beetle, eaten by a wood mouse, eaten by a barn owl. And what it has kind of like names for each level. The oak tree is the producer, which is like the green thing that then is using photosynthesis and sun's energy. The primary consumer is the first thing that eats. The secondary consumer is then the second thing in it that eats. And the tertiary consumer is kind of usually like the top of the food chain. Think about it from primary schools or schools. Producer, primary school is where you went first. Secondary school is the school you're in now, 11 to 16 school. Tertiary school is college or sixth form. Now, there's also two pyramids that then you need to know a little bit about. This is called a pyramid of numbers. And what it is, it's kind of like a general idea, a general kind of impression of how many numbers of something are in a population or a food chain. Here, 1,000 blades of grass is eaten by 60 caterpillars, eaten by 10 magpies, eaten by 1 cat. I'm not quite sure how a cat would actually catch a magpie, right? And I don't think a cat could really eat 10 magpies, okay? But that's kind of the principle. The principle is that you've got a pyramid of numbers. This is then a pyramid of biomass, which is way better. What you can do is you can start with a pine tree, 1,000 kilograms of pine tree. Because what we're doing now is we're talking about the biological mass. Eaten by 100 kilograms of caterpillars, sparrows, sparrowhawk. All right, and what you've got there is you've then got a pyramid that shows the way that mass actually travels through the food chain. Here's a good word, bioaccumulation. Bioaccumulation is when toxins build up in a food chain. The animals at the top of the food chain are affected most severely. Now, an example is bioaccumulation of mercury. Now, mercury, when it goes into the water or wherever it's from, is absorbed by plant plankton.